First up, Sonia Elijah, an independent investigative journalist, BBC researcher, background in economics. She has been looking into the COVID debacle, as we have called it here. And she's written a book, 311, Viral Takeover. On March 11, 2020, the pandemic was declared. You can follow Sonia on X, Sonia, SONIA _ Elijah, ELIJAH. So both Caleb and I were remarking that it's remarkable we have not heard on prior to this. So we will get that underway. And then Nick Freitas comes in. He has the book, the Man Book, about, I like the subtitle, Guide to Sucking It Up and Getting the Job Done. He is a former U.S. Army Special Forces. We're going to talk about people that have been blackpilled and many other topics right after this. Sonia Elijah has a Substack. I'll give you that address in a second, and a podcast. You can follow her on X, as I said, Sonia _ Elijah. SoniaElijah1word.com. Sonia Elijah Investigates is the Substack. I think the podcast also, and again, the book is 311 Viral Takeover. And Sonia, thanks for being here. The first topic at hand, since of course you are over there in Europe, the testimony of the former, I think it was Pfizer executive, about deaths that had been, shall we say, hidden from public view from the vaccine. Tell me about that. And thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me on. Yes, we've got Dr. Helmut Sturz, the former head of toxicology at Pfizer Europe, estimating that between 20 and 60,000 people in Germany died as a result of the Pfizer and BioNTech COVID shot. And this is based on Germany's regulatory agency, PEI, receiving roughly about 2,000 deaths, suspected deaths following the COVID shot. But what he did, he applied a underreporting factor of approximately 30. So that's where he got that figure from. And that makes sense because we know, based on the Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare study, this was done between 2006 and 2010. The authors concluded that literally fewer than 1% of vaccine adverse events are reported.
And what was the reaction like? I mean, I sort of am surprised the way people still push away data like this or findings like this and just sort of, yeah, but it saved 1 million lives, or all kinds of kind of cognitive dissonance gets kicked up. Well, what has the reaction been like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the book I've written, which essentially is a forensic investigation into the proclaimed once-in-a-century pandemic and what was done in its name, reveals even more damning findings, actually, Dr. Drew. But I think the damage, the carnage it's caused is just too much to hide. I think more and more people are waking up. I'm sure a lot of people know people who have suffered from adverse events because of these experimental gene-based products. So it's getting harder to hide, but they're still trying. So this book that I've written, it's took me almost over 3 years to write. It's got over 940 citations. It's based on thousands of pages of Freedom of Information Act released documents and also whistleblower interviews. So not only are fatal cases being underreported, Dr. Drew, you've got the original evidence that they were ever reported in the first place being deliberately destroyed, which is just so egregious. So one of my chapters in the book, I interview an independent senior data analyst from the Netherlands called Wouter Ockemmer, and his findings are so alarming. What he found was that 40% of serious adverse events, including deaths resulting from the COVID shots, are being systematically lost. And what you're finding is that, or made untraceable. So every time a new a case summary report is being updated, even to add a comma or a period to it, it gets given a new case ID number. So the original case is untraceable. So this is really, really damning. And we know there's been a huge cover-up on the data. The book talks about rampant censorship of the data, including, censorship of the science. You have the UK HSA here refusing to disclose critical data that could possibly link the COVID shots with excess deaths that have been going on. And the reason they cite is that, it will be really distressing for bereaved families. So they're using that as a shield. It will be too harmful. It'll be too harmful for their mental well-being.
And then there is the question of, with the other thing that happens in this country, it all gets dismissed as, well, COVID is the one. COVID's the culprit. That's why we're seeing these things. And that may be true. It may be partially true, but we really don't even get the data on that because there's a possibility that the vaccine will be part of the story, or the two together, the COVID with the vaccine, will be the more problematic sort of influence. But it's still not being properly studied. There was some sort of, I'm trying to look it up right now. There was a prospective study that the CDC did. I forget what it was called, but it didn't show, it showed a bunch of fertility and menstrual problems, but it didn't show deaths. Are you familiar with that study?
There's so much evidence now, isn't there, Dr. Drew, coming to light. Even though they've tried very hard to censor even the articles, scientific literature exposing these harms have been systematically.
How did they do that? That's sort of mysterious to me. How that, other than the editors themselves seem to be like towing the line. How did they get them all to toe the line?
Well, the authors, they get a letter like your study's being withdrawn, or it's being, it's outright rejected by the journals. So this has been.
How did they get them to? How did they get them to do that? There was such. I remember the moment that it kind of broke through a little bit. In this country, there's a pretty prominent publication called Annals of Internal Medicine, and about 2 years into the pandemic, there was an article about the use of budesonide and I think fluvoxamine, something like that. I thought, finally an article of repurposing drugs for the treatment of COVID. Thank you, Annals of Internal Medicine. But before that, not a word, and certainly not much after that. How did they get all these editors on multiple continents to cooperate with this?
Well, you've got so much, regulatory capture going on, right? The pharmaceutical industries, they wield so much power. And funding, the journals do the industry's bidding. Going back to fatal cases, I'm going to talk now a bit about child deaths, which is just extremely disturbing. So I looked at the periodic safety update report submitted by Pfizer and BioNTech to the European Medicines Agency. And again, this was only released because of a group of medical professionals in Europe filing Freedom of Information Act requests. Those documents got given to me to analyze, and it was so disturbing what it revealed. In the case of 12 months, you've got over 160 child deaths following the COVID shot, including deaths from myocarditis, pulmonary embolism, and these are children with no pre-existing conditions. And what also is even more disturbing is that the majority autopsies were not done. And this is another way they're trying to hide the possible link, because they're not doing the autopsies.
And then the real culprit behind those horrible findings is the fact that people were mandated to do this. Did you get into the mandates and the lockdowns and how they were able to pull that all off, and why we can't start holding people accountable for those things, in at least some countries somewhere? I know here we have a problem with it, but you tell me.
Yeah, so the beginning of the book has an appendix, which is a very comprehensive, detailed timeline, and that took me quite a few months to compile because with these dates, they reveal a lot of anomalies, and you can see that many things arose not organically, but were essentially kind of planned. So, for example,
Right.
February 4th, you have Alex Azar, who was head of the HHS at the time, invoking the PrEP Act, shielding all the vaccine manufacturers from any liability. This is weeks. This is
the organizations 4th. and the organizations that mandate it, because it's to cover the military who also mandated it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason actually why I chose the name, right, 3/11, right, that's March the 11th. That's when the World Health Organization declared a pandemic and our world changed forever. And I draw a parallel with 9/11. So after 9/11, we see this disruptive event, this crisis, but it leads to a weaponization of fear and then expanded powers by the state. You have with 9/11, we saw citizen surveillance by the state, but with 3/11, we actually saw citizen compliance with the state. How people just, they agreed to stay home. We had the lockdowns, they complied, and because they essentially weaponized fear. And it's just this is how they got people to comply.
But the coordination to me is what's so extraordinary. I went to Europe in probably 2020, I guess it was, and it was even worse in some kind. Like France and Greece were terrible with these lockdowns and masking and blah blah blah. And the citizens themselves were the prison guards. They were the ones from the bottom up, sort of not just cooperating, but they were the police force to make sure everyone had their mask on. Everyone is at 6 feet. All this stuff that was made up.
Yeah, we know that the UK government spent hundreds of millions of pounds on propaganda messaging, right? Messaging saying, stay at home. If you go out, you'll die. Grandma will die. Stay home, protect the NHS. People did stay home and they died of other causes like cancers and heart attacks and refusing. They couldn't get access to decent medical care. So it's just really egregious what went on. But don't forget the vaccine passports that they introduced, right? That was the proof of concept. The proof of concept for digital IDs, which we are seeing strongly pushed right now. I can hear a phone going in the background.
Well, that's us promoting. That's us promoting calls. We actually have a caller that wants to talk about her. She's actually a nurse who had a vaccine injury. But I heard what you said about the proof of concept. A lot of the things that happened was proof of concept, but it also revealed to us the centralized authority, the fact that many physicians are employees, the fact that public health is out of control in many countries, that you can get a bottom-up participation in a mass psychosis. All these things are now revealed. And I did not really understand those things until we went through this experience. Christine, you're an ER nurse?
Sorry, I was muted.
Christine?
I wasn't. Can you hear me?
Gotcha.
Can you hear me?
We got you.
Hey there. Yes, I was an ER nurse. I got COVID in October of 2020, and my last shift was my last shift. I contracted COVID in the ER, got the vaccine in 2021. And that completely ended my life as well as my career.
So sorry. Is it chronic fatigue and that sort of stuff, or what kind?
So I have a myriad of issues. I have, name it. I have chronic fatigue, myalgic encephalomyelitis, whatever you want to call it, POT. I had a weird pain syndrome initially that no one believed me. That was one of the hardest to figure out what it was. Let's see. The COVID brain fog has never gone away. It continues to this day. I have
Have you tried
Concussion
anything
syndrome.
or been effective? Have you tried any sort of treatment that's been effective for you? And I'm wondering if you have a specific question for us also.
So I initially did a couple, because I got it early, not early, but I mean, October of 2020, relatively early. I did a couple of hospital protocols. Ivermectin was on one of the protocols, as well as heparin, because of the microclotting, and a long laundry list of supplements that really did the trick. So I went from a long COVID syndrome to having just the chronic fatigue. The protocol that I did to kind of rid my body of the COVID, it worked. I was looking for a way to get back to work, and I knew if I went back to work, I would have to get the vaccine. I read somewhere, unfortunately, that someone had a positive response with the vaccine reversing their long COVID. That was circulating around.
That idea was circulating around.
Fortunate. I wish I had never read that article, because the entire time I was in the cattle call, I kept telling myself, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I knew it was too soon. It went against everything I knew as a nurse, scientifically, hadn't been tested. There's no way that this could have come to market this quickly. I vividly remember each step in that line telling myself not to get it. And I went from that being functional to absolute chaos. I've had 30 admissions, 90%
Christine, I'm going to have to put you back on the ICU for what?
You name it. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I've never been in DKA my entire life. I have been in DKA 6 times, but that was only a few of the admissions.
So listen, I have to put you back on hold. Did you just want to share this tale with everybody? Is that the purpose of the call? Or is there something specific?
And to let people know, there is a sense of desperation you will hear with a lot of people not being believed. I try to spread the message.
I appreciate it, Christine, and fighting the fight. But I have seen not only the lack of being believed, but shaming patients, shaming them, or saying it's all in your head, and all kinds of dismissive sort of qualities. When now I know a lot of physicians, their entire practice is just managing post-COVID, post-vaccine injuries. So Christine's story was not at all unusual in my mind. I'm sure not in yours either, Sonia.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting she mentions ivermectin. And as we know, the way, which was an effective early treatment for COVID, got completely blacklisted, smeared. And my book does go into a lot about how that was essentially censored, along with hydroxychloroquine.
It was crazy. I mean, I was not an enthusiast of either treatments, though I talked to people who were. And to think that doctors couldn't do what they believed was in the best interest of their patient, that was one of the lack of informed consent, the lack of ability of doctors to treat the patient before them, and they were mandating that their bodily integrity be violated, dismissing patients to go home until they turn blue. I mean, there were so many egregious ethical transgressions that I was in disbelief during the whole thing, and I have to conjure it all back up because it was sort of traumatic to go through. But there's one other thing I want to get from you, since you've done all the research on this. China. So much of what started the ball rolling was a group of scientists that went to China and fell for their bullshit, completely fell for it. You chronicled that in the book as well.
Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of course, China's in, the origins of COVID. The first two chapters talks about that, and the whole gain of function research going on at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The three pillar publications that whole anchored the dismissed the lab origin theory as a conspiracy theory. Yeah. I go into all the key figures about
racist.
That.
Called racist here. You were racist if you said it was from China. That's crazy. What do you want people to learn or sort of take away from the book? Is it proscriptive in any way? And obviously you're uncovering lots of things that you think people should know so they understand how their government works, how public health works, how big pharma works, how badly our rights privileges can be taken away in the setting of a mass psychosis. But what do you want people to take away?
It's for people not to be manipulated again, right? Not to fall for it. And obviously we know how much they weaponized fear. People were generally afraid. But we know that the infection fatality rate was like 0.1%, which is comparable to a severe flu season. And that was known very early on. But it is essentially to expose all of the crimes, all of the deception that went on, the coordinated, systematic censoring of any dissenting scientists, public, the vaccine injured. We know how poorly the vaccine injured were treated, gaslit. But it really, the book ends with a hopeful of knowledge and truth being the antidote to all of this. And really, it's to edify people. That is why I wrote the book.
Yeah, it's really an uncanny experience, this whole thing. But I guess you got to look at it as a blessing that what was there was uncovered. I mean, this potential was there. But I'm remembering right now the enthusiasm with which the scientists came back from China. They've got it. They got it done. They locked everybody down and they did away with the virus. There's no more COVID in Wuhan or anywhere in China. How a group of, I think it was international scientists, could come back from that and believe the crazy, crazy graph that they sent to President Xi, which was COVID, locked, we got a pandemic, no COVID, zero COVID. It was a hoax of the first order. And then they came back and hoaxed us with a bunch of random nonsense, dreamed up ideas like 6 feet distancing and lockdowns and masking.
We know, I just want to end with, we know that Imperial College London University, this is from Professor Neil Ferguson's report 9 was pivotal in all this, because many of the leaders I know.
He was an evil player in this. Where has he been lately? Other than with his consorting with his young lady that he went out with during COVID while everybody else was locked down. Exactly. So what is he doing now? Is he still in charge?
I mean, I just want to make the point that report was like, if you don't lock down, in the US, you'll have 2.2 million deaths. The UK, you'll have about 500,000 deaths, all based on an exponential growth of the virus. And we know that wasn't happening. You had the Nobel Prize laureate Michael Levitt at that time, even back in February 2020, saying we're not having, actually it's slowing down, we're not having an exponential growth. And he also based it on inflated fatality rate in Wuhan and not anywhere else. There were many flaws with that report. And he has a history of catastrophic overestimating
catastrophizing. Exactly. Yeah, he's a catastrophizer completely. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know why we ever listen to that guy, but the to this day we treat Omicron as though it's still Alpha and Delta. So the other thing the other gaslighting was when Omicron took off. And they just refused to acknowledge it was a different illness. It's literally a different illness with Omicron. And, oh, no, it's going to get worse. It's going to be worse. We got to keep it up. It's going to be worse than Alpha and Delta. Omicron is just a quick off-ramp for a little while. Then it's going to get really bad. But that's not the way pandemics go. Pandemics need a host. Now, I understand this was a manipulated bioweapon probably. So maybe that scared them. They were, expecting anything. But they should have been open and honest and allow doctors to do their job. I was just one of the most extraordinary experiences. So, Sonia, I thank you for writing this book. I can't wait to dig into it. The timeline in particular fascinates me because every time you see it, it just you get more and more incredulous when you see all the things that came to bear. And
Yes.
you're absolutely right. The most significant progress we can make, you know, I say this all the time in this show, but Matthias Desmas taught us that in a mass formation, only 10% of people raise their hand and go, hey, oh, what's going on here? That needs to be a bigger number. That's 70% that just wants to be left alone.
Yeah.
The true believers are going to be true believers. There's nothing we can do about them. They're always going to be around. But the 70% that just keeps their head down needs to be part of the group that raises their hand and goes, hey, hang on a second. I don't know about this. So thank you for writing the book. Hopefully it will contribute to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the show.
You bet. I suspect this won't be the last time. Hopefully see you again soon.